thing, and then you got a lot of D&D stuff. I see also. I just saw it on your
So,
Instagram today. What other types of sci-fi fantasy are you into?
I'm kind of all over the place. I get these hyper fixations on different stuff. I'm really big into tabletop games.
Nice.
So, I played D&D, got really into D&D and fantasy, kind of learned my place in that artwork. And then like we'd move over to something like Kids on Bikes, which is more 80s oriented, and then we'd move over to other games. So we'd do all that, and I kind of got to explore each of those, but man, I'm goofy. Like, hey, what are you super into? I'm like the Muppets. Like it's the weirdest so
Combo.
I have this
grab
big
bag.
wide range. Yeah, it's a grab bag of stuff where it's like,
that's
what
awesome.
are you into?
I'm the same way. Like, yeah, it's funny because I'm very into Pokemon, but I don't even necessarily love. Like, I never played any of the games. I've played the one and only Pokemon game I've actually played is Pokemon Gold on a Game Boy Color.
Yeah.
But I love the aesthetic of Pokemon. I love the designs of the actual Pokemon. So and also this is it was a part of my childhood for sure. Growing up, I used to watch Pokemon on because when I was a kid, we didn't have cable, so when I come from school. Or when I come from school, the only channel we had was WB Kids. It was we had one channel, and so the highlights were Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh. Those were the two shows that were appealing, and so it kind of also I think that also kind of played into it. I kind of grew up with Pokemon as a part of my life, and again I never really played the games. I just really enjoyed the actual characters. They look great and they're really cool. But so I like Pokemon, and then I also like Star Wars and and Marvel and Rick and Morty, and just a little bit of everything. Kind of I just like whatever is good. That's
I got started, so a couple years back, I say I got started, but I got started kind of posting online more stuff with DeviantArt in the superhero OC community.
Okay.
And that grew actually to because I say this because you mentioned the MCU, and I was like, oh right, that's a huge part of my lore was me and some friends got together and kind of decided what would it take to make a comic book. And so we made a couple comics and said, well, what would it take to get these published? And so we opened our own comic book publishing, indie comic book publishing company.
Oh, nice.
Published ours and friends comics. And then I was like, man, this is great, but it takes me so long.
Yeah.
If only I need a little outlet where I can draw something quick and easy with a formula that I know. And I moved on to Pokemon.
Yeah.
And eventually was like, oh, I'm having a lot more fun doing this.
Yeah.
So
do you do it how much of your time is your content? Because I know you're posting a lot on YouTube. How often do you post?
I post 3 videos a week, and each video is about 30 minutes long. That's kind of what I aim for.
Yeah.
And then I try to, when I get the chance, I'll probably post a story or a short a week, and then a live a week.
Wow. So are you doing it full time, or do you also work a corporate gig?
No, I do this full time. So this is full time.
That's awesome.
I'm a very disorganized person, but my calendar is where that's my one blinder spot where I'm like, this is what I got to do. And so I spend a lot of the time Tuesdays, Thursdays, I'll work on commissions and other projects and non-art stuff, so digital interface type things that people have hired me on for. And the rest of the time, the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then pickups on Sunday night is spent doing videos. That's the full time.
Are you doing it all yourself? All the editing and everything is all you're just a one-man band?
Pretty much. So I was in a very fortunate situation in high school that I actually, excuse me, I got the opportunity to graduate 2 years early. I finished school early, but most schools don't want you to do that.
Yeah.
So they gave the system of, well, you can go to the secondary school for half the day and then just take electives for your normal school stuff. And this secondary school, you kind of went in, said, here's what I want to do. And they put you in a class specifically for that. So at my normal school, was taking speech and debate. So I was learning to public speak, learning to be up in front of people, things like that, write scripts. And then at my secondary school, I was taking film and graphic design.
Nice. So you were
I learned
you're in an incubator to do exactly what you're doing now.
Oh, pretty much. It creates this weird thing where it's hey, I'm going to do YouTube full time. And people are like, oh, that's so sad. And it's no. This is literally what I went to school for. I just didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah. How long have you been doing it for? Because your YouTube channel, it looks like you've been posting for about a year. Have you been doing it for longer, or is that accurate?
So I started posting regularly with Pokemon content on a set schedule for about 8-9 months now.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, I have older videos that were just kind of, everyone kind of has a YouTube channel where they throw their videos like, hey, me and my friends did this funny thing the other day that I recorded and I post there. But it wasn't until, I want to say, June of 2024 that I started to say, like, I want to take this seriously and I want to, like, anchor myself in this position.
So is that when you kind of shifted to, like, focusing on YouTube full time, or were you doing it before then also?
I started shifting mentally in that time.
Uh-huh.
So I was at a job and I thought I need to experiment with what this could look like if I were to leave my job and do this full time.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent about 6 months just doing YouTube, seeing where I could get, seeing what it could do. And in that 6 months, I realized, oh yeah, this is absolutely a possibility for me. And seeing the support, seeing the outcry of people who were so like just there and popping in my Discord, everywhere, like this community was building. And so I said, I can do this. And I spent that 6 months as an experiment. And actually, if you look back at my community posts and things, you'll see that I reference this as an experiment often. And I always thought, I wonder if people are curious what I mean by that. Because it's kind of just in my brain of, this isn't a YouTube channel. This is a big experiment for me. But it worked out very fortunately.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow. So it's only been in that time that you kind of shifted from working in a more like corporate setting to working full time YouTube, just like taking that leap. And listen, it seems to be doing pretty good for you. Because I'll tell you, like when I was starting my other channel, that's like more focused on like my own like personal projects. So I did like a lot of like research, and I was like watching a lot of YouTube videos about how to make YouTube videos and what make good YouTube videos, and kind of checking out other Pokemon oriented channels and seeing like what they're doing. And so I came across your channel, suggested, and I started like scrolling through. Like I scrolled all the way back. I was like, let me see, like,
oh no,
because I was kind of, no, I'll tell you, because I was curious. I was thinking like, okay, if I really wanted to try and monetize a channel, like how long does it really take? And some people say like, it takes X amount of time. Some people say that, and also, especially if you look on Reddit, and they have like a subreddit of NewTubers, it's called.
I'm on that subreddit. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So people will be like, you see people who are like, I've been doing YouTube for 5 years and I it's not going anywhere. But then you'll see kind of the feedback that people give, and it's like, dude, your YouTube page is about basketball, but also about bananas, but also you post about, it's like these people are kind of a little bit scattered. But then I kind of found the people who like really kind of like honed in what they were looking to do, and really, they found their niche, as everyone likes to call it. And so I kind of like was doing some studying, and so I was looking at your channel, and I saw like over the course of the 8-9 months that you've been posting, that like it went from like 200-300 views, and all of a sudden it starts going up to like 1,000 to like 10,000 to 30,000. I was like, okay, like this clearly this guy knows what he's doing. You kind of followed a blueprint. Can you kind of walk through like what that blueprint was that kind of got you to see that growth?
No, I will not divulge my company secrets. Thank you, though. I'm just kidding. No,
it's proprietary.
So my big thing is, I'll say this to start off, and then I'll explain it. Everything you read on the internet is true. That's the first thing.
Of course, everyone knows that.
And by that I mean,
that's a quote from Abraham Lincoln, I think, right?
Yeah, Abraham Lincoln said, "We hold these truths to be self-evident that everything on the internet is true."
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so I went and I looked up, like, hey, how do I do this? What are the top 10, BuzzFeed's top 10 ways to become content creator? What are the so and so? And I kept finding these things, and for a while, it was stuff like consistency. And I would watch that, and I would see that come across, and I would say, oh, well, that's too hard to do, so I'll ignore it. And then I'd see it pop up again and again and again and again. Other things were like picking your niche, and I was like, oh, well, I don't want to do that, so I'll ignore it. And I think so many people do that.
Right.
That it's like, oh, well, I don't want to do this thing, this part of it. Right. So I'll ignore it, and I'll do something else. Well, I'll just have a gaming channel that's so good that everyone watches it anyway. Right. It's like, okay, how are you going to do that? I don't know. Well, you're going to do it through consistency and through picking a niche and through all these things that all these sites are telling you.
Yeah.
And there are things outside of that I actually get asked a lot a question similar of like, hey, I'm moving from Instagram to YouTube. What should I expect? What should I do? And I tell them, how many followers do you have on Instagram? They're like, oh, I have like 3,000. I'm like, you should expect maybe 5% of those people to move over.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky.
Yeah.
They're not cross-platform transferable.
Right.
So
right.
It's a lot of stuff like that.
People who you follow on Instagram versus who you subscribe to on YouTube are very different. Right?
Very different.
I find it's a lot easier to follow somebody on Instagram than to subscribe to a channel on YouTube. So it's like it's like you're saying, it's not the numbers don't translate 1-to-1 for sure.
Well, like I was thinking about myself the other day and thinking like I don't hardly subscribe to anyone on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's because the algorithm just throws what I'll marathon a show that I really like or marathon a creator that I like, and then I don't have to subscribe because now the algorithm is just giving me their next video.
Right.
So subscription on that basis is hard.
Yeah. You almost have to want to support the creator to subscribe.
Right. And so like when making videos, you have to think, okay, I'm a difficult person to get to subscribe to stuff. What would a creator have to do, have to act to earn my subscription?
Yeah. No, I get that for sure. Yeah. So what are some of the ways that you try and earn your viewer subscription?
A lot of it is like interaction. I made it a promise to myself when I first started doing this, because I've been on, and I'm not going to name names, but I've been on a lot of Discords of like, oh, I really like this creator. I'd love to hear more about them by joining their Discord. And it's like, oh, last posted 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this is a fan club they created and walked away.
Yeah.
So I made it an important point for myself that I want to be in the community. I want to be my own number one fan.
Yeah.
And so I do that. I'm in my Discord all the time. I'm still posting on Instagram. I still post on Reddit, and I always get comments. I did not know you were on Reddit. It's so funny to see that stuff. And it's like, no, I'm here. I'm a real person. I exist.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think, like you said, you have to look at it and be like, a subscription is almost, why do I want to support this person?
Right.
And
I guess part of it is seeing them as a person.
Absolutely. And to do that, I try as hard as I can to make sure that I'm kind of in there with my crew.
Yeah.
And I think it's fun. It's one of those things awesome. You see me and it's like, look at that creator making stuff. And then I'll go make like a butt joke in my Discord. And
right.
Like, oh,
right.
He's just like us.
Yeah. 100%. It's funny because like, so in starting this podcast, like, so I've reached out, I kind of been like taking a few different approaches to like how I find people. So I mean, ultimately, I really am just kind of talking to people who do things that interest me and that I want to talk to. But like my three kind of ways of like finding guests is, one, going to people who I already know and have established relationships with. Then two is finding people on Instagram and on YouTube and who kind of are doing things I like. And then also I use a little bit of Reddit of like I found like there's like a podcast sub of like looking for guests and like people looking for guests or for guests looking for shows. I actually got 3 guests off of it. I've done 2 episodes with them already. I have another one coming up in a couple of weeks. But that's like that was just kind of as like an aside. Like that was kind of it's kind of a cool place. You also kind of find some wacky people over there, but it's cool. And I don't know where I was going with this, but so I was saying, so like one of the first episodes I recorded was with this guy who I've been following on YouTube for years. He's a sculptor. He does these really cool fiberglass sculptures. So he makes these like 20-foot sculptures, like makes them out of foam and then makes them and like coats them in fiberglass. So they're like lightweight but huge. And he did things for Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, like for the actual like stage props like that was on the set. He did he made I don't know if you're a fan of like metal at all, but Iron Maiden. So they have Eddie, like the skull they bring out at every concert. So I don't know if at every concert, but at their concerts. So he actually made Eddie, And I remember he's done a lot of really cool projects. I mean,
like he made The Eddie is like
the Eddie.
Like he made
yeah,
The
yeah,
Eddie?
like the actual one that they bring on stage. Like that's his piece.
Crazy.
And he also did, this is like, I thought that was kind of the coolest one in my opinion, was he actually made the Pink Floyd album cover. You know, I think it's The Divide, I think is the album, where it's like the two heads kind of like facing each other. You know? Yeah, so there's two versions. One of them, it's like they're made out of stone, and then one of them they're made out of metal, it looks like. So the metal one, he told me it's like one was for the record, one was for like the cassette, something like that. They're two versions of the same album cover. But the one that you see like on like Spotify, that he made, that's an actual sculpture that he made. And like took the photo. I'm learning
right now that that's a real physical thing.
Yeah. So because what happened, I had him on I was talking to him and I said to him, I was like, I noticed, you know, in your shop you have like the heads from Pink Floyd, you know, hanging on your wall. I was like, are you like, a fan of theirs? And he's like, yeah, whatever. He's like, yeah, like I made that for the album cover. And I was like, wait, what? You know, like it was. So just the point of like all this is what I'm saying is, it's really cool because like, yeah, I'm a big fan of this guy's work and like I've been following him on YouTube for years, but like he's just a person, you know, like to kind of get to meet them and talk to them and just be like, you know, these are just people, you know, and you know, they have likes, they have dislikes, they have interests, they have stories. You know, that's also like a big part of like a big reason behind kind of making this podcast. It's just kind of like show the person behind the artwork, you know, like
absolutely.
You know, like, and it's so much fun. It's cool to meet these people because, you know, anybody who's out there making content and making artwork and doing these things, you know, they're going to be interesting people. You know, they're not boring people who are, you know, sitting there twiddling their thumbs and not doing anything. You know, they all have interesting lives, interesting stories. So it's so cool to like get to see the person behind the portfolio, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Like I kind of feel bad because my other channel where I've been like working on my personal projects, I was trying to do once a week. And I got two out that because there were projects that were already finished. And then I got so busy with this that like I haven't really been able to keep up with the other one. So, but I do feel that this is more, I am prioritizing this a bit more because the other channel is a lot of fun. I really do enjoy it, but it's also it's a lot more hands-on in terms of like the post-processing, which is less exciting than the actual like making the project, you know?
Yeah.
Like all the because there I really have to, I go into, because a podcast, especially a long form podcast, you know, I want to keep it more raw and conversational. So there's not a whole lot of work that has to go in post episode. You know, it's very minimum editing. Whereas the other content, you know, it's more YouTube content. So I want it to flow like a YouTube video, right? So there's a lot more, you know, cuts and jumps and putting things in and music and all these other things taken into consideration. So it's so much more time consuming. So like I do feel bad that I haven't been on top of it as much, but I've been enjoying this so much that I'm like, you know, it's okay. Like I kind of put down the back burner and
guilt is just proof that you're a true creator.
Exactly.
The reason that I bring that up was not to derail you on that question, but you're talking about like meeting these people and finding out they're just regular, real people I'll keep it vague, but I know when I first started doing Pokemon, I said like, if I can work with so-and-so on a project, I'll know that I've made it. I'll know that I have not wasted my time. Yeah. And that video was recorded last weekend.
Nice. Awesome.
So it was cool to like meet these other creators and be in this circle of people that was like, oh, wait, we're all kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You're not these far off people who are like looking down upon me. I mean, they might be, but they're great actors if they are.
That's
it was very interesting.
Like, I find in the I guess in like the art scene you could call it, I find everybody to be so supportive and so willing to like help and work out, and like I've yet to have a negative interaction with anybody in the field. You know, like you always hear like stories, like I say, like from like Hollywood, like, oh, this person, that person, and maybe it's exclusive to like the actors and kind of people in that you know thing. But in terms of the actual like the creatives, I find they're all great people, you know, and they're all just so happy to help and so willing and they love to collaborate and sometimes they won't be interested, but they'll just be like, you know, like, I appreciate the offer, but no thanks, you know, and it's like, okay, you know, if you don't want to, that's totally fine. You're like, you know, I'm not gonna force you to come on and do an episode if you're not interested, you know. But no, it's a great community, and it's really cool to you know, go out there and make those connections and develop those relationships, because, you know, and it does require putting yourself out there, right? Because I think a lot of people don't do it simply because they're too afraid to put themselves out there, and like they're afraid of rejection, where it's like, oh, what if I reach out to so and so to collaborate or whatever, and they say no. So, and like that, some people I think find that fear is so crippling that like they won't even put out and ask. And truth is, if you go out there and ask, I found 8 times out of 10 the answer is yes. You know, more people are happy to say yes and to work together than to say no. You know, so like, yeah, it's a great community. Like, you know, and it's fun. You know, it's get to do what I love and get to meet other people doing what they love, and
absolutely,
it's amazing. It's so much fun.
It's so weird, like, to be in an area where there like is no gatekeeping. Like, I'll see artists talking to one another, and someone comes in who's just like a nobody, like a little guy, and they come in and say, "Hey," to another artist who's like huge, "What brushes do you use?" And the artist like messages them back, "Oh, I use these." Like, that was weird. That was a weird interaction I just saw. Super nice, should be normal, but very weird.
It's like shocking, which is like weird. Like, why is that surprising? You know. Yeah, for sure. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day. She's a 3D artist, and we were talking about how it's very interesting. I've noticed a trend with people who are, you know, professional artists, you know, working in the industry, that most of these artists end up going, once they've kind of like worked their way up in the industry and, you know, built a career, I find they all kind of end up going and teaching. Because like they all just want to like end up giving over the information to like the next generation of beginners,
right?
You know, and it's very cool. I think, you know, it's a very, you know, heartwarming, for lack of a better term. You know, like it's really nice to see that like people, again, if you're doing what you love and it's what you're passionate about, right? And you know that there are other people who are going through the same process you went through, you know. So you feel like almost, I don't know if it's a responsibility or what it is that kind of drives us to want to go and like teach the next generation, if you will. But like everyone's just so happy to do it, and it's great. It's an excellent space to be in, I think. And I think also, especially now, like the time that we're in with YouTube and with the internet, and like it's so accessible that, you know, that also I think feeds into it a lot. That, you know, like it used to be, you know, whatever, glass blowing, let's just say, right? Let's say you're a glass blower in Italy. You know, if I wanted to go and learn glass blowing, the chances of me finding this like master was, I first of all had to be in that country, had to be in that region, had to have some sort of access to him. You know, now with the internet,
before all that, you have to know that they exist, which is probably the hardest part.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's one of the really great things about, you know, of like the whole time that we're in with YouTube and with Instagram and with all these different like apps, where you can just discover people who are doing the things that really resonate with you, and then, you know, you can start either collaborate with them, learn from them, whatever it is, like wherever you're holding, whatever it is that you need from them, you know, they're there to provide it for you, and, you know, and kind of to develop that relationship. It's really, really cool, I think.
Oh, for sure. I think that's, you know, the way I look at it is, it took me 6 months to get to like this point. Yeah. And that's fantastic for me. That's wonderful for me. But I'm not going to go back those 6 months and be like, okay, Stern, now let's do it faster. So the better thing that I could do is pass that on to people so that they can say, well, I got to this point in 4 months.
Right.
Well, I got to this point in 3 months. And I love that. I love the idea that, you know, there's so much that as creatives, we're all kind of like, there is no direct do this, then 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 success.
Right.
So you're building that path as you go. And if we can help one another by saying, hey, here's how you can better walk that path.
Right.
I think that's almost the role of a creative community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's really, I find it so fascinating how different and how unique everyone's like journey is in the creative space. You know, like, I mean, for myself, like the way I even came to do what I'm doing is like a whole crazy story in and of itself. And again, I think maybe it's just kind of the nature of the beast that everyone has like such unconventional paths of how they got to do what they're doing. But you know, I think at the same time, all the people would tell you like I wouldn't do it any other way. You know, like because it that journey is what makes you who you are. You know, and you know, like if you want to be an accountant, you know, there's a very cut and dry process. You know, you go to school, you learn this, you apply to these companies, you know, but when you're in a space like the creative space, whatever it is, whether it's YouTube or whether it's working, you know, in animation or 3D modeling for video games, you know, whatever it is that you're doing, it's a much more unconventional path to start with. So you kind of get people who are taking unconventional paths and unconventional people, but I think it's more exciting, you know, as you get more and more exciting, more interesting people that way.
You do it, you put your all in, and then a week later you'll find out if that worked or not.
Exactly. And if it didn't work, you know, either you jump ship or you find a new way.
Try again. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are really your only two options. Yeah. So I want to ask you, like, first of all, I just want to kind of get into your work, because what really caught my attention is, you know, obviously your work kind of follows the theme. All your projects are these Pokemon crossovers.
Yeah.
So first of all, how'd that come to be? Because I'm a sucker for crossovers. I love crossovers. Like I'm working on a project that is pretty much finished. I just need like to carve out the time and like put the last 5% in. But it's like a crossover. Going back to talking about like, you know, Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and WB Kids, I would do like a crossover of Lugia with the Blue Eyes Toon Dragon. So kind of like a Lugia in that, yes, it's like Lugia in the Blue Eyes Toon Dragon style kind of thing. I originally like wanted to have like kind of the Toon World book and like, but I felt it was getting a little too busy, whatever. But I love crossovers. So how did you kind of choose to do this like Pokemon crossover thing?
Yeah. So I had like officially like kind of started doing the YouTube thing, and I did a video, and it's still there. And it was about like, I forgot what my premise was. It was something, I don't know where I got the idea, but I decided like, I'm going to make Pokemon that fulfill these tropes. And I think I was only doing like one Pokemon a video at the time. And I did one that was a vase that turned into like a woman pouring a vase. And I made like the title like, obligatory sexy Pokemon. Every region has to have one or something like that. And I posted it everywhere, and like I had several people on Reddit say, "Oh, that looks a lot like Aquarius. That'd be a good Aquarius Pokemon." And I said, "Oh, well, if people are talking about it, I may as well do the rest."
Yeah.
So I did the rest, and then all my friends and I were playing Elden Ring, and I said, "Oh, this would be fun to do Pokemon because they're so drastically different."
Yeah.
And I was doing that while also putting out other videos, but those did really well, and so I did the next thing, and I was a big Five Nights at Freddy's fan, so then I did Five Nights at Freddy's as Pokemon, and before I even knew it, that kind of became my thing. Was mashing up Pokemon with other franchises, and I had so many comments of people like, you get your comments where it's like, "Oh, this is fun, this is terrible, whatever," but I had so many saying, "Oh, I hope he does X as Pokemon next." Like they were seeing the pattern of where the channel was going before I was.
Wow. So it's almost like the project found you, not the other way around.
Yeah. I left my job with my boss that I didn't want to work for anymore, and now everyone in the world gets to be my boss. And that's how that works, I guess.
Yeah. That's funny. Huh. I thought like I just assumed that you had this idea, and then you kind of, you know, it's interesting that it kind of came like it was like inverse. It was really you know the idea found you more than the other way around.
Well, we're just looking and seeing like, okay, what's working? What, like I said, for me, engagement and like community is like a big part. And so at the beginning, when I had so many people saying, like, "Oh, I hope he does this next. I hope he does that," I was like, well, if this is what people are asking for and what they want, then
give the people what they want. Yeah.
And slowly that became what the channel was these Pokemon mashup videos. And every now and then I break away from it. I just did one where it was new fossil Pokemon. And I'm surprised when those go well, because I feel like they're not what I do. But I think at a certain point you build a community strong enough that it can kind of support itself.
Yeah. But, and there's a whole I don't know what the word is, not network, but there's a whole a whole range of channels I've seen of like people who do Fakeamon and all these kinds of things. Like it's a whole. That's like kind of like when I first was starting my Pokemon, my like 3D printing. I call it Printamon. My like Pokemon 3D printing channel. The original idea behind it was, which I still plan to go to once I had the time to like really focus and like sculpt more. But the idea was to I was gonna like title it making Fakeamon Realmon, and basically like taking some like cool Fakeamon I find online, and then because they're always like illustrations, so taking like cool illustrations and then making them into 3D models and 3D printing them, so like kind of like bringing them to life almost. That was like really the initial, and then just to kind of get myself like started, I just took projects that I had already made and just started like making videos, just to kind of like get a feel for making YouTube videos. I still would like to kind of focus in on that niche, because like that is kind of, I think, a cool sort of thing that I haven't really seen. But again, I have to get better at the scheduling thing.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
That's the hard part, but
I keep waiting for the day when I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm ahead, and now I can just stay on this track of being ahead for the future. And
I've been waiting for that day for my whole life.
It's getting further and further away, right? If anything.
Yeah. So what are some of your favorite projects that you've worked on?
Oh man, so some of my favorite projects, where one of the projects that, it's not huge, but it was one of the first times that I really got noticed for what I was doing and hired on, was Roblox. There was a group called the Gang Stockholm who made a game called Bloxymon, and they needed designers, and they found me on Instagram, and it was a whole thing where it was like, hi, I'm from this company, we want to bring you on to design for our new game coming out. And I was like, I know a scam when I see it. But it ended up being real, and I got to design a bunch of designs for them, and it was like, wow, I think that was the first time, it was probably like 5 years ago, that it was like, wow, people care about this. People think that I have something worth investing in some way. Yeah. So it wasn't a huge or crazy project, but it was definitely, as far as my favorites, one that really allowed me to see the worth in my own work.
So is it one of your favorites because of the content, or because of like the story behind it, and like the place in your heart?
The story. Almost. The story behind it. Content wise, one of my favorites would probably be one that I actually did for someone else's video. I did a collaboration with a user on YouTube named Febe, and we decided we're both really into like this cryptid horror type of setting, but we're also really both into Pokemon. Okay. And I had dropped an ARG on the same day that she dropped an ARG.
What's an ARG?
Similar. An alternate reality game, or an augmented reality game. It's stuff where it's like, oh, you have to find the clue in the description of the video to answer the question in the next video to put together this puzzle. So we both dropped them, and they were similar to the point that people started asking, oh, I wonder if they're working together.
That'd be cool. You get like clues to other channels and... Yeah.
Well, they eventually came to the conclusion, no, they're not working together. And at that point, I decided, it'd be really funny if I reach out to her and we collaborate on a video. So we did this cryptid video, and I did the Frogman, the Loveland Frogman. This frog, if Bigfoot was a frog. And it was one of my favorite designs, but I found that with the evolution of my style, a lot of my favorites are the new ones. I think I sent you like my son character from Five Nights at Freddy's in an image. And I don't know, it's very human-esque, but I really dig it. I used a lot of new techniques, and the techniques that I've kind of evolved to use over the past couple months, I think are making my design feel like something closer to what I envisioned. So stuff like that. But that Loveland Frogman, so the Roblox one for the story, the Loveland one because I got to troll people in my own fan base, and then my son character from Five Nights at Freddy's video, just because I really liked the way that it turned out.
Yeah, no, it looks great. It was a very cool character. So were you were you always into illustration? Because you're very good at illustrating. So is it something that you've been doing your whole life, always been drawing, or is it something you picked up later, like when you're doing the schooling and stuff?
Oh, I've been drawing my whole life. My parents single-handedly supported the white paper industry with how much that we used in my house. All my life, I remember like the first things that I drew were like Ninja Turtles. And I actually didn't get into Pokemon and drawing Pokemon until I was probably in like 5th grade, 6th grade. But prior to that, I was drawing up when I was like 3 or 4. I was drawing on like the coffee table in the living room. Yeah. But yeah, my friends were really into Pokemon, and I was like, "What is that?" But my family didn't want to, or we couldn't afford like a Game Boy for me to play. And so all I had was what other people were telling me, and it was almost this game of telephone, of like, "Oh, there's a Pokemon that looks like this, and is this? Here's a picture of it," and I'd go home and draw it, but I couldn't remember quite what it looked like.
So you've been doing Fakemon before it was cool.
Oh yeah. It was very much like the bootleg, like when you get those little figurines from the swap meet. Yeah. Like it's almost Pikachu, very much like that.
Yeah. Oh wow. So let me ask you, like, just about your process with your videos. From what it looks like, and actually, I'll finish this question, and there's another I want to focus on a specific video because there's one that I really like. But I'm just curious, when it comes to editing your videos, it seems like there's not a whole lot of editing that goes on, right? Because your videos kind of follow the same structure, right? It's kind of you illustrating in real time, sped up. It seems like a little bit, and kind of narrating over top. How much work are you putting in after you finish recording in terms of like the editing process? Is there a lot, or is it mostly just kind of raw footage of just screen capture?
I'll say it goes pretty quick. So it's the screen capture. It takes me about 30 minutes or so to draw a character.
Oh, so nice! Wow.
The screen capture process, if I'm doing a video with 5 characters, probably takes me 2.5 hours.
Do you have like an idea of what the character's gonna look like before you start, or what you see in the videos is you just ideating on the fly?
Half and half. So usually what'll happen is I'll have an idea. Dinosaurs is Pokemon, or Five Nights at Freddy's is Pokemon. Yeah. And I'll know what I want for that video. I'm like, oh, it'd be really cool to do this character. And then I'll know what I want for that character. I'll think about it for a while. I'll know what I want. And I'll draw that character. And it goes at some point in the video. But that will inform me on the style and the direction that I want to take the rest. So usually I'll have 1 or 2 that I'm like, I know exactly what I'm doing. And then I'll get to the 3rd, and I'm like, all out of ideas. No idea what's happening.
Yeah. You kind of use the first 2 as like the jumping off point.
Absolutely. And so that 3rd one or the 4th one, those will be kind of watching me go through, trying to figure out what I want to do with that. And then the editing process of putting the video into the editing system is probably about an hour of that. And then I, of course, am doing the voiceover. It helps that one of the things that I learned, I said I went to speech and debate. I did speech and debate for 3 years. And then I coached it, is I'll actually watch the timeline go, and I'll record my lines, because I don't have a script. Yeah. I'll just record what I'm saying and watch, and know when it gets to this point, now I'm talking about something different. And then I'll keep watching the timeline. Okay, now it's at this point. Now I know I'm talking, and I can time when to wrap up what I'm currently talking about. That's cool. So it takes me probably to put a whole video out about 4 hours.
Wow. I guess that's how you can do 3 videos in a week.
Yeah. I also don't sleep. I just take little naps when I blink. So
take micro naps.
If anyone watching this, I highly recommend cutting sleep out of your schedule.
It's overrated.
You don't need it.
Yeah. So one video that I really, really enjoyed, you did a Pokemon Ben 10 mashup. And that was one of my favorites, because I love Ben 10. That was probably, if not my favorite show, because we got cable like when I got like a little bit older, if not my favorite show of all time, definitely up there. Definitely one of the top 10 contenders, no pun intended. That was like such a good show, and that also the characters were, the Omnitrix aliens were so cool. I remember, and it was so different than anything else out at the time, you know, and it was I loved that show. So when I saw that mashup, that was really awesome. I really enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, I'm a huge Ben 10 fan. Always have been. I love the designs. I love the characters. And I honestly had been waiting for an excuse to draw Ben 10 as Pokemon.
Yeah.
So that's when I started doing polls. And I was like, here's all the stuff that I really want to do. And eventually it won. And I was so psyched. I was so pumped. And I'll give a little hint on my cheating of that system. I saw it winning and was like, I want to spend more time on this. So now that I see it kind of winning, I'm going to start now. Because for the others, it was like you could do... Yeah, well, for the others, it was like you could do 4 characters or 5 characters and call it a day.
Right.
Ben 10, you have to do 10.
Right. It's not called Ben 5.
Yeah, it's not Ben 5. It's not Clive 5. So I was like, you have to do all 10. So I got a little bit of a jump on it because of 2 things. 1, I had to do more than normal. And 2, because it's a franchise that's so close to my heart. I have a friend who actually did the art for the like the packaging and like physical promotional material. Nice. He did the art for that for Ben 10. And so it's very close to my heart. It was something that I wanted to make sure I got close to right.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping I did.
Yeah, no, for sure. Who's your favorite alien from Ben 10?
Upgrade.
Yeah, I hear. For me, it's between Upgrade and Wild Mutt. Those were my 2 favorite. There's something.
Okay.
The simplicity of Wild Mutt. He was just so cool. But Upgrade was just like Upgrade was cool because of what he could do, and also his design was pretty sick too. But Wild Mutt, like I also like those are my 2 favorite aliens, hands down. So.
Oh, for sure. They're fun characters. I'm just glad he didn't say Forearms or Heat Blast because they're cool. No. But I'm like, oh, one of those. Got it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I remember I had a Wild Mutt action figure that you would like pour. There's like a little thing you could open on its back. And you pour this like slime into the back, so that when you like push the button, its mouth would open. It would like start like drooling.
Oh, I remember. I thought there were commercials for that, weren't there?
Yeah.
I remember seeing those commercials. See, I'm a little bit older than you, so I was a little bit like in that phase of life of, am I too old for toys?
Yeah.
And so I wasn't like getting any, but I remember being at the toy store being like, oh man, it'd be so cool if I could just.
I've always been into toys. I still like that's what I work in now is toys, and I just like if I flip my camera around, I'm just surrounded by toys. My whole workspace.
Oh, for sure.
Is
Same.
Full of I
have a huge wall here. I went through like this little phase of like I have to look as cool as humanly possible.
Yeah.
In like high school and early college.
Right.
And so I can't buy toys. And then like after that time, I was like, now to buy all the toys that I ever wanted.
Yeah, and now buying toys is what the cool kids are doing, you know? Like,
And now I'm the coolest. It came back around.
Right, full circle.
Friends come over and they're like, you have a Pac-Man machine? Like, of course I do.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. Oh, you don't?
Yeah. Oh, man, that's awesome. So let me ask you, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's like looking to start a YouTube channel and kind of start whatever the niche is, but kind of someone who's interested in kind of starting out and branching out and whatever it is that they're interested in, whether it's illustration or or sports or bananas or whatever it is.
Yeah. But I would say, I'm going to regurgitate what I said before on this, is consistency. It doesn't have to be 3 videos a week. That is a lot. Yeah. That's something crazy people do. But having consistency and setting a schedule for yourself will help you a lot. And the reason for that I've found is this. People tend to get on their phones at the same time every day. Go to lunch, hop on their phone. They start to get into the pattern of seeing your stuff regularly. Mm-hmm. And at some point when they see your stuff regularly, they're going to subscribe, they're going to follow, they're going to support you in some way of viewership. Yeah. So having a regular schedule is a big part. The other thing is not quite as fun that I've found from, having a YouTube channel that wasn't growing, wasn't moving, to having one that kind of blew up in a couple ways is if you treat it like a business, it'll become one. Mm. And that's good and bad. So you treat it like a business, having that consistency, following that niche, following the trends and patterns, then it'll grow like a business does. Mm-hmm. But the work will also grow like a business does. I quit my job because I had a lot that was on my plate there while also trying to do YouTube, and I became full-time content creation. I am busier now than I've ever been. Yeah. Because it's a business now. It's something that has to stand on its own. And I'll just say those are my two biggest points, is consistency. And if you treat it like a business, it'll become a business, for better or for worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then understanding, and then there's the homework part.
Right.
There's the algorithm of like, what's popular? What's banging right now? Right. I get questions of people saying like, you should do, I don't know, the Banana Splits TV show characters as Pokemon. It's like, the show that was rebooted in like the 80s. I love that show, but no one's talking about it. It's not something that people are actively searching. So instead I do something that I'm not super interested in, but I know is going to get views. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So for sure.
That's part of that.
Yeah. How do you think your like style and approach has changed over your time in doing this?
By the time that I give you an answer, it will have changed again. Like I said, this is all one big experiment, and I will constantly and consistently present it as that. I think my style has changed drastically. Part of that is the competition aspect. Is now working with other creators, being in collaborations with other creators, is you feel like you have to keep up. And so learning and taking into account more the styles that you're trying to mimic, I think I've grown a lot in that, and I think you can see that in video, is that the growth that's happened there. I call it an experiment because that will change. It has changed. I started out by doing a faceless channel. Just, hey, let's jump right into the video. Yeah. And then I had a little animated me, a little PNG me. Yeah. And then I updated that little PNG me. And then I said, I can save a lot of time by just recording myself. Yeah. And who knows? Next week I may be doing something different. I don't know, but it's an experiment.
Was it hard for you to start like recording yourself? I know a lot of people have a hard time getting in front of the camera, recording themselves, doing all that, and you kind of like you were talking about, you have your public speaking and debate experience, which I'm sure helped. But even with that, I imagine it's probably not so easy, especially when once you start to build a following, how many people are watching. I'm sure it's not so easy necessarily for everybody to get in front of a camera.
Again, for me, I looked at it all very much as like a business. It was hard. I'll say that it's definitely difficult, and it's a new way of putting your brain to work. Yeah. But so I did like Twitch streams on and off randomly like a year or so ago, and it had no camera. But then I started to realize you get more views when there is a face cam. So it's like, okay, swallow my pride, do that because it's a business that I'm trying to do here. Yeah. And from then on, it's no issue at all anymore. But yeah, I understand how that could be discomforting for some people. I get it. I remember when I first started recording stuff, I was like, I hate my voice. It sounds so different from what I hear in my head. Right. And maybe you'll be able to say something on this, but after recording myself voice and face for so long, that voice in my head and the voice that comes out have gotten a lot closer to matching.
Interesting. I haven't even noticed that, but now that you say that, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. It's funny, like in the beginning, you're like, that voice, that's not me. And now you're like, yeah, that's what I sound like. That's what I hear in my head.
Yeah. It's funny because, so this app that I'm using to do the recording, it has a feature where I can have AI like mimic my voice. So let's say in theory, let's say I wanted to add an intro and outro, and be like, thanks for watching, and kind of have the same thing on every episode. Yeah. So I could theoretically like type in the text, and then it will generate my voice. And I was like, let me just try that. I typed in just a very generic, like, thanks for watching, if you enjoy this video, blah, blah, blah. And I played it. I called my wife into the room and I played it. And I said to her, like, whatever. She's like, yeah, it sounds great, whatever. I said, that was AI. And she's like, wait, what? And then I played it again, and it's not perfect. Like the inflections and everything it's very flat and very monotone. But it was funny because I was listening to it, and there was a sort of weird disconnect of like my voice in my head versus the voice I hear when I'm recording. But this is kind of neither. It's kind of like this uncanny valley that kind of is somewhere in between the two.
The difference
it was very unsettling.
The difference is, but I know I didn't say that. Like it's the memory and knowledge of, but I didn't do it.
Yeah, it was just a bizarre experience, you know? It was really, really unsettling. It was kind of like, oh, this is weird.
There's a common phrase that I use like with my friends in my house where I'll do something like something very jerky. I'll do something to be mean or whatever to mess with, and they'll say, "I can't believe you did that" or whatever, and I'll say, "That doesn't sound like something I'd do."
Right. Yeah,
or vice versa. Something will happen. I go, "Yeah, that does sound like something I do." Like I don't remember, but that does sound like me. Now that you mention it.
Yeah. It's funny. Like when I was starting out, and before like doing the YouTube stuff, which is not, I've only been doing it for less than a month at this point. I've been doing it for maybe a month. I'm doing it for 3 or 4 weeks. And so when I first got a microphone and, connect my headphones to the microphone, so I would hear my own voice in real time, but hearing it through the microphone. So hearing it, how it actually sounds, not how it sounds, when you speak from your own POV, it was definitely an adjustment to kind of get used to that, but you get over it quickly, I think, but maybe not everyone feels that way, but it's definitely.
Well, I know there are different things that go on. I have some people who I know some people who they'll just never be comfortable with their voice. They just, they don't feel like that's them, or they feel like there's a disconnect, and that is a case. And I'll say I understand that, being that that's the case that some people have. I am very fortunate that I'm not going to say I like my voice. I have grown accustomed to hearing my own voice and can acknowledge, that's me. And I know some people have a disconnect there. And, I'm just saying, I know that some people, it's a difference between I just don't like the way I sound, and this other block that some people may have. And,
right. For sure.
How things are.
For sure. So let me ask you,
sure.
This is something I tried to touch on with my guests. Are there any failures that you can look at, that whether it be something that you were proud of but just didn't work out the way you thought it would, or something even you're not proud of, that it was something that you tried and failed at but it kind of helped push you forward, that you could look back at and be like, it sucked at the moment, but I really feel like it was a learning experience?
Yes, I do. I wasn't thinking have I ever failed? No, I was thinking is this a story that I want to tell here?
Right. But if you don't feel comfortable sharing it, obviously you don't have to.
The problem is I feel super comfortable with all of it. The problem is other people. But so when I was working at my previous job, I was legitimately depressed. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is not where I want to be. This is not what I like. I was in the trenches of it. In such bad ways. I ended up getting therapy, talking to a therapist, getting as much help as I possibly could on these things, and came to a point where it was the realization of kind of putting these things together with my work and with my family life and stuff like that I realized I'm not doing hardly anything to give myself joy. Mm. I kind of grew up in a household where if you were happy, it meant you were doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. Because your job is to be dutiful and get the job done.
Yeah.
And I was so accustomed to that last year in June, that all kind of came to a head. And I decided, I don't care how dumb this sounds. I don't care what other people think about it. I need to do something that just makes me happy and brings me joy.
Yeah.
And so I cashed in all my chips on, I'm going to draw Pokemon on the internet. It was dumb, it was weird, it was stupid, but I was like,
how'd
if
your
I
family
can make this work.
How'd your family react to that? Were they supportive, or were they apprehensive?
Well, for a while it was just this side thing. Mm-hmm. Oh, on the side, he's doing this. Mm-hmm. And it was the idea of he's making some money, and then it came it was he's doing this little thing for himself. And after a month or two, now he's making money, so that's fine. And then it became, hey, have you thought about quitting this other job that kind of got you into that position? Mm-hmm. And I did. And there were a lot of spaces where I was worried or scared or concerned. But ultimately, it came down to the idea of what is more important, what is most important here. The ability to say, yes, I have a regular job like everyone else, or the ability to say, I feel emotionally healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I left that job. I do this full time. And I think that was a really hard negative thing, right? You know, you look at it and it's like, wow, what a terrible position for a person to find themselves in at that point.
Mm-hmm.
What a failure, what a failed spot to be in at that moment. But I feel like so much good has come from it. Both for me personally, for my family, for the community that I've built around this stuff. None of that would have existed if I did not hit my darkest day.
Yeah. That's a really great transition to the next question of what to you is the definition of success?
I remember once I asked my dad this. My dad is a big business guy, and I asked him once, would you rather be successful or happy? And he said successful. And that weighed on me for a long time. Because for me, and I think the reason is because for me, the definition of success is so broad, but a part of that is being happy.
Mm-hmm.
Is being able to take care of yourself and the ones that you love, and to be able to say that you and they are happy.
Yeah.
I think that is success, you know. It's, doing what you love. That's fine, but I love sleeping. That won't allow me to take care of the ones that I care about.
Right.
And if anyone's watching this and knows of that opportunity, my email will be somewhere online. Contact me. But, you know, it's the ability to take care of yourself, take care of the ones that you love, and to be able to say that you firmly believe that they and yourself are happy.
Yeah.
I think that's the measure of success. Everything else that could be considered success falls under that.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, you know, I'm making a ton of money, but I'm unhappy. I got bad news. I don't think that's success.
Right. So, you know, what good is all the possessions, you know, and the tangible things that you maybe could have, but if the intangible things aren't there, you know, what's it all for in the end of the day?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Very well said. I was one of the guys I was talking to, and you know, I was talking about before, the guy, the sculptor. I asked him the same question, and he gave also a really nice answer. He was talking about how he has 4 kids, and you know, he got to do what he wants his whole life, got to do what he loves, and all of his kids, you know, he's in his 60s now, so all of his kids worked with him in his shop. You know, his wife was part of his business. She was the bookkeeper, you know, and like, it's a really beautiful thing to hear these stories where people can do what they love and do what they want to be doing, and, you know, have their families involved and take care of their families, and, you know, not take care of their families in a way where, you know, they're pushing themselves to the limit to support everybody, but doing it in a way that like everybody feels happy, everybody walks away kind of with like being a part of it, and, you know, being present for each other. You know, it's a beautiful thing. And, you know, like, it's a very, unfortunately, I think it's a rare opportunity that not everybody gets to have. Which it really is unfortunate, but at the same time, in the day and age that we live in, I think it's more possible now than ever before. You know, when, you know, it used to be that you had to go work in the coal mines because that was the only job that existed,
right.
And
right.
That still does exist. I'm not taking away, but, you know, fewer and fewer people find themselves in that situation. And, you know, I think there are a lot of people who sit in a cubicle, right, or sit behind their desk and daydream of doing the things that they could really be doing. You know, they could go out there and take that chance and take that risk and do the thing that fulfills them and makes them happy. You know, and you could have your cake and eat it too. You know, you could you can do that thing, and if you do it well, and like you're saying, you think of it more as a business than as a hobby, you could build it into that business and really support your family and support yourself and take care of your loved ones while also feeling fulfilled and feeling happy and doing what you love. That's really what it boils down to.
Oh yeah, and I'm very wary to use, I know I did use it before, to use that word like, oh, turn it into a business, because I think there's such a negative connotation to that word. Like, oh no, but if it's a business, then I can't be happy. It's like, you absolutely can.
Yeah.
It can be a business that you enjoy, and it can be a business that makes you happy and makes you feel successful. But that's dependent on you. That's dependent on what you see with it. Like when I did that indie comic book publishing company, we shut it down. Why? Was it because it wasn't successful? Because the company wasn't making money? It was doing all of those things. It was successful. It was making money. We just weren't having fun anymore.
Yeah.
And so we figured, so why are we doing this?
Yeah. It kind of leads to the next question I wanted to ask you. This is sort of a two-pronged question, so I'm going to try and I'm going to try and bring it to one question if I can. And that is, how do you deal with creative blocks and keeping a schedule for yourself that is sustainable, that you could keep, because obviously you're kind of, especially the volume that you're working at, you're pumping out a lot of content, you're constantly involved with it, right? And when you're dealing with creative endeavors, you could very easily push yourself too far and too hard sometimes, to the point where you do kind of run into burnout issues. So how do you kind of structure your schedule in such a way that you avoid that overexertion and that that burnout that could come, that you really want to avoid at all costs when you're dealing with creative endeavors? You don't want to get into a situation where, like you're saying, where you don't love it anymore.
Well, I think that it's utilizing different parts of your brain for different projects. I think that's a big part. So for example, on Monday or Friday, I'll do a grab bag video, just whatever I wanted to draw, whatever I wanted. Mm-hmm. But Wednesday's almost a challenge where it's, okay, whatever you guys voted, I will draw, but I only have a very limited amount of time to do it. That's a very different part of your brain. And I don't know, because here's the thing. The question is how do you avoid burnout? And I think the true answer is, as much as I could say, oh, you do this, or you do that, or you exercise, or you break away, the true answer is you can't. Everyone burns out, and that's okay. I think that's the difference, is we look at it as such this negative thing. And it can be. But I think burnout is such a such a harsh word, whereas I think the other the coin for that is, what is burnout? Well, burnout is working yourself so hard that you feel like you deserve and that you need a break so that you can recenter yourself to get back to what you were doing before. That doesn't sound so bad.
Right.
That sounds like something I think we can all do and we all deserve to give ourselves. But burnout is such this harsh word, and harsh term. I think that I combat it by doing my mashups. Hey, I don't really feel like drawing Five Nights at Freddy's this week. I'm going to draw this other thing. And then having commissions where I get to talk to people. And then, of course, having the Discord and the groups that I'm in where I talk to fans and hang out with fans of what I'm doing. But, of course, also having a Discord with just me and my close personal friends.
Yeah.
Where, I'll be honest to people watching who are in that Discord server, sometimes I complain about you guys. I'm sorry, and I hope that that's okay. But, having a spot to vent and having a spot and people in your life that you feel comfortable just saying, man, I am tired. I think that's how you can avoid the negative of burnout.
Yeah.
And maintain the positive. It's just feeling allowed to tell yourself and tell others, dude, I am tired today.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of being in touch with yourself and kind of being aware of the balance or lack thereof at any given moment. That's very well said. Very well said.
Thank you.
Yeah. Very nice. I'll have to think that one over.
You're gonna message me back later and be like, hey, remember you said that and I said very nice? I decided it's not. That was a bad response. I thought about it for a little bit.
It was not, in fact, nice. Yeah. What are some of like the tools and skills that you would like to learn and master over the next whatever months, years? Is there anything specifically you kind of have been working to learn new? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I constantly have something going on, and it's a terrible, terrible disease that I have. I'm currently working on building a fan game for the region that I've been building for the past couple months. Mm-hmm. But something, and I'm doing that as I'm like relearning how that type of building and mechanic works. I've done it before. I'm trying to relearn it. But two things that I want to learn and that I want to get into. One of them is I've always wanted to create like a digital card game. And I want to figure out how to do that. The other is I am so awed by, honestly, people like you 3D designers and renderers and people like that I don't even know what the term is. That's how uneducated I am on this world. 3D modelers. I am so in awe at what you guys are able to create, and I want to learn how to do it. But I think just like with the video stuff, there is such this like embarrassment for me to enter. And it's so weird because I could draw, I could get in front of the camera, whatever. I am so embarrassed to like start learning 3D modeling because I know I'm going to be terrible at it.
Right. It's hard to be, especially when you're good at one thing, it's hard to become a beginner at another thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I don't want to be the little fish in the big pond. Yeah. And it scares me, but I so desperately want to learn it in the quiet hours of the night, in the dark, where no one can see me or hear me cry.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is there's so many resources online and so many first of all, so many teachers who kind of have either pre-recorded, classes or, kind of more hands-on live sessions. It's really, first of all, there's obviously the whole YouTube, free academy. Then also you go the kind of the paid route and you do these like mentorships. There's so many out there. And, again, just like we were talking before, it's such an amazing community of people who are so willing to help and so happy to help. Just so one of my episodes was with a young woman who is a 3D character artist, and she said that she learned everything she knows from YouTube. This guy online, Polygon, he does ZBrush tutorials about stylized characters. She said everything she knows about making stylized characters was from just watching the YouTube videos and and trying and failing and trying again and getting feedback and all that. And it's definitely doable. It's obviously, like you're saying, it's hard to start from scratch and kind of commit to the process, but it's so rewarding. For me personally, I've always enjoyed 3D more than 2D. I love drawing. I love 2D. I kind of did it from a young age. I was always sketching, but to me 3D is just so much more intuitive. Just the way my brain works. So but it's so rewarding when you can go out there and make a 3D model, especially with printing. Like I have my printer, so like to get to like then print your thing and like hold it is just it's so cool. It's it's like, I made that,
Yeah, it's a place that I want to get to someday. I don't know how. Yeah. See, my thing is all the answers that you gave right now, I can see them being flipped back on me, where it's like, how did this come out so bad? There are tons of videos on YouTube and people willing to teach him, and people, all these different assets that can be used, and yet it came out so bad. Like that's my fears. It's like, yeah.
Yeah. No, but listen, you gotta start making the flops to make the good things. Like that's one thing. Like in my in these recordings, I really try to ask the question about failure to my guests, especially when I'm dealing with, because like I said, I try to get a wide range, right? So I have people who are directors, producers, that kind of roles, but a lot of the 3D and 2D and people like that, and because I think a lot of people look at somebody who's successful in a career as an illustrator, as an animator, as a 3D character artist, and they think to themselves like, oh, this person obviously always was that good. You know, like they came out, they were born with a 3D model in hand, you know, and it's very easy to lose sight of the fact that everybody started from scratch. Everybody started someplace, you know, and like it's really not as inaccessible as it may seem. You know, it's definitely intimidating when you look at it. You know, like I kind of think of like the analogy of like, this is an analogy I try to think about in general when it comes to learning new things or setting out to take on a large task. And I say it's kind of like hiking up a mountain, you know, in the middle of like a thunderstorm at night, right? So, you know, you kind of, before the night and the storm started, you stood at the bottom of the hill and you look up at this massive hill or whatever, Mount Everest, let's just say, because it's a classic. And you look up at it and you think to yourself, oh my God, this thing is huge. I'm never going to be able to reach the top, right? And you start hiking up and all of a sudden it gets dark and it starts pouring rain. And every once in a while, it's a flash of lightning. And it only lasts for about a split second. But in that split second, you kind of can get a glimpse of how far you've come and how much further you have to go. And it's very daunting, right? Because you still, no matter how far you've gotten, you know, there's still so much, it always seems there's still so much more to go, right? But eventually you get to the top and, you know, the clouds part and it's clear. And you look back at the mountain that you just climbed up and you think to yourself, wait a minute, how did I do that as fast and not painlessly, because it definitely is not painless, but when I set out to do this, I thought it was going to be an impossible task, and now that I've completed it, I did it, and you know that alone speaks volumes more than what you tell yourself before you try and set out to do it. You know?
Yeah. No, I think that's a very apt example, and yeah. I'm just afraid I'm the guy who shows up at the 3D modeling mountain and they're like, why is he in sandals?
Where's your gear, bro?
I'm like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Like I got three baby carrots and sandals with warm socks. I'm ready to go.
Yeah. No, but I highly encourage you just give it a shot. And also there's a lot of like free resources. Like I said, not just the learning resources, but also, you know, like Blender, and their free softwares also that you can kind of dip your toes into, kind of non-committal, you know. So you could try it out, and if it works, it works. If not.
Blender, and I'm looking at it on my other monitor right now.
Oh yeah,
because I downloaded it at one point and was like, someday, and then never touched it again. Like it's taking up so much space on my computer, and every time I look at it, I'm like, maybe someday.
Yeah.
So just know I'm prepared. I showed up prepared.
That's how I felt about like the whole YouTube thing, you know. And I've been thinking about this and sitting on this for literally probably 2 years, just thinking about it. Like I should really do it someday. I should really do it. And I've been kept like telling myself I should really do it someday. And I don't really know what it was that like switched, like what the switch in my brain was, but I kind of said, you know, stop thinking about it and start doing it. I heard this great line. I don't remember where I heard it. I wish I could remember, but it was there are two types of people. They're, you know, pretenders and doers. And you know, and so I forgot where I heard that, but it really struck me, and I thought to myself, like, I heard that and I want to like put it, you know, like write it down, put it on the wall somewhere and be like, you know, the two types of people, they're pretenders and doers. Be a doer, you know, because with anything, you either are pretending or you're doing. There's no in between, you know. And so like, that's just, you know, that's kind of been a theme throughout my life of, you know, I could sit and ruminate on something for days, months, years, right? But it's very hard to like kind of take that first step to just start doing. But once you start doing, you know, like when I was a kid, like with homework, I would push off homework. You know, I'd find every single excuse in the book to not get homework done. And most times I didn't do it. But like,
it's on my desk at home, I swear.
Exactly. You know, but then the times that I would do it is, you know, I'd finish and I'd be like, oh, that was easy. And now everything that I wanted to do that I thought I wouldn't be able to do because I'd be too busy doing my homework, I got my responsibilities done, and now I can also do what I want to do, and
Yeah.
I think it's an important thing to like remember in life. And I'm not talking to myself as much as to anybody else, that it's, again, it comes back to that line of there are two types of people: pretenders and doers. Be a doer. That's kind of a tagline I've been trying to implement more and more as I get older.
I like it a lot.
Yeah.
And since you've admitted that you stole it from somewhere else, I'm going to steal it from you and not feel bad.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm going to apply it to my life. I like it a lot.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to wrap this up. It's a good a high note.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go before one of us says something just like, I don't know,
totally off the rails,
terribly not politically correct or something.
Where can everybody find you before we go?
Oh, you can find me on my YouTube channel. You can find me on X or Blue Sky, all of which I am the Sterninator, TheSterninator. Or you can find me on Instagram at @thesterninator_art. But everywhere else, I'm just the Sterninator. But
Amazing.
My friends call me Stern, so
amazing.
You can call me that. But
all right, awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
And I hope to have you on again soon.
Oh, for sure. Let me know.